Okay. 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 Good. Thank you so much. Because I was just, trying to pick up that for background. And what we're going to be talking about today is strategic doing. But before we get into the doing part, I'm going to kind of, share with you the concept of how, what strategic doing is, the characteristics of strategic doing, and why I think it is a very, very good concept or system to move people. Because, if you look at all of us, we are in the people moving business. I mean, as much as possible, we are all sales people, right? And what we do is we actually, you value your time, and you could be doing something else somewhere, but you decide to come here. So you are coming here in exchange for something that you think you're going to get. So that is how you really, set yourself up to move people. So based on what we've heard so far, we face some sort of transformation, right? So this is the transformation that we face, and there are kind of a couple of things that I'll be, talking about. And I'm going to start by talking about our grandparents' economy. So we have grandparents, and the grandparents' economy also goes like your grandfather's economy. So we have grandparents, and then we have. Now the next topic I'm going to be talking about are to do with hierarchies. And we've kind of had some bits and pieces of that. I'm going to kind of go into that in terms of how it helps in community building. The other thing I'm going to talk about will be the grandchildren's economy. So we're going to talk about the grandchildren's economy. And once we kind of get an idea as to somehow these things work, we're going to move into three concepts that I'll be sharing with you today, which will be one, networks. And then within networks, I'm going to break it into three other sessions, which will be new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, and then new ways of behaving. So, I'll be kind of doing some things here, but, for the most part, this is the context in which I'm going to break it down. So, we're going to go to our grandparents' economy, talk about hierarchies. Now, most of our grandparents' economy, which is kind of like some of the things that we were talking about, really is based on what? Hierarchies, right? So if you come to look at something like a hierarchy, looks like this. So you have somebody at the top. So you have something like this. You have something like that. Right. So they are linked here, and then you have that, and then they are linked here, and then you have that, and they're linked here. So it's kind of like a hierarchy, right? Now, whenever you have a hierarchy, you have somebody at the top. And when there's somebody at the top, there are some people at the bottom. And what mostly happens is that in most of community doing, the people at the bottom, at least from what we've said, some of the examples that you can, I'm sorry if my back is against you, but I'll try and be using both. So what we have here is the grandparents' economy, which are kind of, perpetuates hierarchies. So what hierarchies do is that the people at the top tend to do what? They think. And the people at the bottom do. They execute. So most of the grandparents' economy that we have really kind of helps us to put us in a place where some people at the top do the thinking and these people are doing. And that is the system that the grandparents' economy has, perpetuated for us. Okay, now let's do a little bit of economics here, right? So let's see let me draw a graph here. Let me see if I'm getting the graph right. Now, just for the sake of history, right? Just for the sake of history and economics. Now, prosperity. Let's take this to be prosperity, right? This is prosperity and this is time. Now, what happens with prosperity and time in basic economics is that, whenever an economy starts, let's say, for instance, in America, in American history, in the 1870s, we had the industrial boom, So we moved from industrial and now we are getting into the information and knowledge kind of place, right? So they tend to have this S-curve thing. They kind of start and then they go like this. So this would be kind of like the 1870s in the United States, where we had the Industrial Revolution and everything was booming. So, it kind of started and then it peaked somewhere around the 1960s, to the 70s. And then from there, it kind of started, flattening out. Now, what is happening since then is that there's a new curve that is actually beginning here. So this is the grandfather's economy, where most of what we did was top down. The people at the top did the thinking, and the people at the bottom did the doing. Now, this was actually good, when you want a stable situation. You want things to be predictable. So you have 100, 200, 500 people working in a place, and you need some sort of stability. So this kind of works in order to, make business go together. So this was the business model that was used. So there was this kind of top-down way of doing things. So that kind of worked. But then in the new economy that we have here, and we are here, so this becomes the transformation and the transition part that we have. And whilst this is the grandparents' economy, this is where our grandchildren's economy is beginning to start. And whereas we had top-down over here, this is a new economy that is being developed, and that is developed around networks. So whereas this was top-down, the new one we have here kind of deals more with what? Networks. Now, Alvin was talking a little bit about, networks and how they work. So you have, linking things. Now, when you have things like networks, when you have networks and you are linking them, you can see that there's no top or there's no bottom. There's no top and bottom. So, decisions kind of flows in so many directions, right? And so one of the things that Alvin was talking about is, when we talk about social media strategy, well, the conversation is about how do you control that. So they're trying to use this dynamic way of how things are moving into the grandchildren's economy, trying to put this kind of way in it so they can control it. Well, it can be done, but it can be done in a way where you have to look at some new thinking and new ways of behaving and new ways of approaching what, building and economies look like. Okay? Yes, sir.
So when you talk about the prosperity, and I know that notice in the graph they're not exactly linked together, those grandchildren and grandparents economy, does the idea of what prosperity is between those two, that transformation change? Are we talking about purely economic, or is there some kind of also transformation of what prosperity means?
Okay, so prosperity here, we're looking at it more in terms of how wealth is created. So the wealth that we've created within our communities and our homes and businesses have been created based on unions negotiating and the Industrial Revolution and, manufacturing and all those things. That is how we have created wealth within our economy. And that wealth that has been created has been based on this kind of model. So that is really what has stabilized the business economy for all we know. Now, there's a new one that is developing here that has not, really organized itself so much to this way of doing things. It kind of deals more with network, which is very difficult to use the thinking of this period to control that one. So that is kind of like the new challenge that is kind of, coming into place right now. Did that help?
I think so. So I think is it talking more about informal economy as well? I think you'll get to it.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So you are interested in the informal economy? Yeah, the informal economy all works here because you are looking at what is strict and organized and rigid over here, and then we are looking at what is dynamic over here. So what is dynamic, it has no control. It goes in all kinds of directions. So that creates a whole new dynamic for all of us here. Any questions so far?